Hey guys, Sarah Gaston here. Welcome to another Facebook Live. I'm your host, and oh, what a world, what a world. I was actually struggling a little bit earlier thinking of what I wanted to talk about, and then once I actually sat down and thought about it, I had like a bazillion things that I wanted to talk to you about. So, as always, please put your questions in the comment box, and I will answer them. But I do have a few things I want to talk about at the top of our hour. It's not an hour, it's like 20 minutes. Anyway, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is comedy. So I've been thinking a lot about comedy because we've been working on it for a few months in my ongoing Tuesday night class. And something that came up, and I work with people a lot privately, and so something that came up about a week ago in a private lesson was an actor made a choice, a really strong choice. And isn't that what we tell actors all the time? Make a strong choice, right? So this person made a really strong choice. They did exactly what we ask actors to do. However, because it was a comedy and because it was a very particular formula, because it was an interaction between two different characters, the choice that this particular actor made just sort of disrupted the music of the scene. And I sensed that this actor was feeling a little frustrated, and they're like, but I was making this choice, which is completely valid. But comedy is a little like music. It's a lot like music. It is written in such a way that if the timing is off, or if the notes aren't played with the spirit in which the composer intended, the music just doesn't quite work. So it's more Mozart and less jazz. And while there are types of comedy like sketch comedy and improv where things can go off in crazy directions, when something is a traditionally written comedy, there is a structure to it. And we've got setups and we've got jokes and we've got tension between different types of characters. And when we make choices that are really inconsistent with these kind of tropes that we have in comedy, then a lot of times the comedy doesn't work the way it was intended. An example that always comes to mind for me is the first year of Parks and Rec. I was a huge Parks and Rec fan, watched it from beginning to end, and it took me a couple of episodes to get into it. But I noticed that there was a character named Mark who had dark hair, who was gone after the first season. We never saw this guy again. And it wasn't that he wasn't a good actor or he wasn't funny, but his type of funny just was dissonant with the type of funny of the other characters, right? So musically he just didn't fit, right? So he didn't come back. And so we have to really get sometimes that acting is like an orchestra, and that we just don't always need electric guitar. And that doesn't mean that, electric guitar, there's anything wrong with electric guitar, but if it's chamber music and we try to bring an electric guitar, it just may not quite work, right? So we don't want to take it personally. We just need to understand that there are certain choices that are going to work more effectively than other choices, if that makes sense. I had this happen another time when I was teaching a commercial class, and it was a commercial that I can't remember the specifics, if I'd actually been in the commercial or if I had just auditioned for the commercial or if I was helped with the casting of the commercial. Anyway, but I was familiar with the commercial. I knew what the advertisers wanted, I knew what the casting director wanted, I knew what the director wanted, I knew what the client wanted because I was involved. And so this actor just was pushing back and going, why can't I just do it the way I want to do it? And I was like, well, you can, but I'm just letting you know that this was the expectation because, this was the campaign and this was the style that the ad agency wrote this commercial copy in. And, if you could do it just however you want to do it, but you wouldn't have booked this commercial. And this really upset this person. And we want to understand that to a certain extent, we do have freedom as actors, but as long as we're working within the confines of somebody else's vision, we still have to ultimately default to that vision because it's not our call, right? We have a voice, We have our part to play, but we are not the whole thing. It's not like being a soloist or being a painter where you are all, right? We are part of a bigger mechanism, right? And so part of our job as actors is to figure out how what we're doing fits into the larger mechanism. That's one of the reasons I love this so much, because it is a group effort, but it does a disservice to you as the actor when it's unclear to you what part you play or what part your character plays. So that's my first topic for today. The second thing I want to talk about is clarity of purpose in a scene. So in another coaching session a couple of weeks ago, I was working with an actor and they were auditioning for 2 different scenes, same role, same project, but 2 different scenes to show, a character arc. And what I noticed right away is they weren't really clear what was happening in either scene. And I want to be real specific when I talk about this. It's very easy to look at a scene superficially and say, well, here are the words on the page and here are the actions that are happening, and so therefore that is what is going on in the scene. That's not actually the case. If you have a scene in a movie or a scene in a television show and there's a husband and wife and they're cutting vegetables for dinner, the scene isn't about cutting vegetables for dinner, right? The scene is always about something else. John Jory calls it the white hot center of the scene. And it's really what is going on in the scene and what the purpose of the scene is, because a scene is never put in a piece of material unless it advances the story, right? So what we have to do is we have to figure out the purpose of the scene, if our character is driving the advancement of the story, and what they're after, right? So this goes back to, what does my character want? How are they going to get it? And of course, if you were listening last week and you heard me talk about raising the stakes, the clearer we are about what we want, what we're doing to get it, and how badly we want it, the more interesting the scene will be. The more it will be, because we don't go to the movies or watch television or go to the theater, when we went to the theater, unless there's a compelling story happening, right? So we want to see people really invested in their situations. So one thing, now that we've kind of gotten started, and I'm going to check for questions in just a minute, one thing I just want to talk about really quickly, and I've seen people do this before with Facebook pages, where they have like, these are the ground rules of this Facebook page, blah 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 blah. I just want to be really clear that this space is meant to serve you. I'm offering you my opinion based on my experience. Your results may vary, and everyone's opinion is valid because everyone's experience is different, right? What I want to avoid, though, is any negativity in this space, right? So if you don't agree with a comment that somebody makes, please don't, just let it go. Please don't start something. Please don't post a negative comment. If you have something that you want to take up with me personally, feel free to message me, right? But it's just not helpful for anyone if we say negative things to each other in this space, and that's not what I created it for. I created it to be a support and sort of a lifeline to my community, because this is a communal art and we're not together right now, and it's sad and it's scary, and so that's what I'm offering through this venue. So let's see, let me look at the, hello Craig, hi, I love the icon, hi. Oh Craig, I love you too. Okay, great. So let's see, this came up in a conversation yesterday. As actors, what are ways we can manage our mental health during this time when we feel like what we do is not important? Yeah. That's such a fantastic question, or a rumination, because I've been thinking about that so much. I talked a lot in some of my earlier Facebook Lives and in videos that I've done, and in videos I've done with Joe Grasaffi, director, who actually shared this thought, that there are certain things that we can do in terms of creating content, right? We can create characters, we can do socially distanced, short films with each other. If you trust your sort of pod of safety, you could do a project with them. There are things we can do, But, you know, the healthiest actors I know do not make their life all about acting. I mean, I love this craft. I love it. The bug bit me very, very young, and I got away from it once or twice and was miserable. So I'm always going to come back to it. But there is a mental health aspect to any kind of creative lifestyle that has to be attended to. So, and I'd love to hear in the comments if people have, things that they're doing. But for me, what has really worked is to constantly have other creative outlets. Some of you guys know I paint, and so I have regular Zoom painting dates with a friend of mine where we just prop up our computers and we just talk for hours and then we paint. And some of the stuff I've put on products and just like I've made some masks, and I have masks with my art on them, and that's kind of fun. I've been taking a lot of online classes myself. I love to learn, so I've been trying to bone up on things that I want to know more about. I actually just signed up for some Zoom voice lessons because I love to sing, but it's not real safe to spray droplets on someone right now. So, I'm reading a lot on topics that interest me. I mean, and this is super basic, you guys, but, eating a lot of live foods. I've bought a rebounder, which is like a mini trampoline. It's really good for getting the lymph system moving, which can be really helpful for the body to eliminate waste. And actually, part of the reason it came highly recommended to me is because I met a woman online who is a 2-time cancer survivor, and she had lymphoma. So she was like, no, I have one of these. I bought this stationary bike, and so I do Peloton workouts at home, and I do yoga workouts at home. I started Kinergy, which is this sort of dance exercise thing that Juliana Huff started. But getting lots of sleep, you just have to take care of yourself. And here's the thing, there is an end to this, okay? We don't know what it looks like right now. The unions are working very hard to create safe working environments for us. And there are different opinions. SAG sort of takes the stance that, we can't guarantee your safety, but we can put protocols in place that will maximize safety. Equity, the Stage Actors Union, is going for complete safety. And so they're being very rigid on what they're going to allow their actors to do. And so the industry is working very, very hard to find safe ways for us to do this going forward. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we don't know how soon that's going to happen, and we don't know what that's going to look like. What I would mainly say to you is just don't despair, because storytelling isn't going anywhere, and we're an extraordinarily adaptable species, and we're going to figure it out. Okay, we're going to figure it out together. All right, great. So I'd love to know if there are more questions, or if people have suggestions for things that they like to do for self-care. Let's see. Great. Hey, Shay, do you have any helpful tips for actors to get out of their head? Sometimes when I mess up in a scene, my body will start to overheat without me telling it to, and then the rest of the scene will just not go right. Girl, I have been there. So I guess there's so many different things that you can try. For me, honestly, yoga has helped a lot. That was something that one of my advisors in college recommended to get a handle on my nerves, was doing yoga or some sort of martial arts, because there is a certain amount of breath work and a certain amount of mental stillness that is part of the discipline. I recommend a book called Zen and the Art of Archery, which I mentioned in one of my videos a few weeks ago, I think, because because so much of it is about a mental state. What happens when we get up in our head and we mess up and then we panic is that we're not really being present. Because if we were truly being present, we would not be separated from ourselves paying attention to what we're doing, right? We would be in the scene mentally. We would be focused on the other person. We would be focused on their reactions and how they're responding to what we're doing and saying. We'd be focused on, you know, what we're trying to get from them, what our agenda is. And so what happens when we get in our head and we get nervous and we mess up, you know, whatever that is that we no longer stay present. And so that really is a mental discipline. And so I would say look at something like yoga, look at something that requires a stillness of mind, meditation, anything that works to clarify your mentality. Apparently archery is a good thing to do. You know, and one of the big takeaways for me from that particular book is that a great archer isn't thinking about the target, he is the arrow, right? So by thinking about the target, we're thinking about the future, right? And so that's what happens a lot of times when we get caught up in our head in scene work, is we're either in the past thinking about how we screwed up, or we're in the future because there's maybe a part of the scene that we're worried about, or maybe we're worried about what is everyone going to think, and is the teacher going to like it, or are the other actors going to like it, is the casting director going to like it, and all of that takes us away from being fully present. I do know the feeling though. I've been there when when you just screw up and you're like, what, it just happened. So, but what I have learned to do is to recognize that a mistake was made, and then pull myself back into the scene so that it doesn't take me on a ride, right? And that's just sort of the mental self-discipline that you want to work to develop. That's a fantastic comment though. How to prepare mentally for an audition or commercial. Do you take time alone to get ready for it? So preparation is the biggest one. The more prepared you are, the more confident you're going to be about what you're doing. I don't really need to psych myself up anymore because I feel confident that I know what I'm doing, even when I'm not crazy prepared. So a big thing is you just got to be in class regularly, and if you're not in class regularly, you got to be auditioning regularly, or you've got to be working with a group of friends regularly, but you've got to be doing it regularly, and you've got to fail at it regularly. You got to try stuff regularly that's not going to work, and you just got to keep getting up and doing it, because it's only by the doing. You know, there's no amount of meditation or books that you can read or gurus that you can go to you know, fix your mindset if you simply don't have comfort in the doing. So, you know, the big thing for me when I was had done primarily theater and was doing a lot of commercial acting, but really wanted to get more into film and television and auditioning for those kinds of projects, is I just started auditioning for everything. I auditioned for every single, like, independent film, student film. I would drive to Austin, I would drive wherever, and I'd audition for everything. Even stuff I didn't know really if I wanted, or if there was anything in there for me or whatever, because I knew that what I needed most was to get comfortable with auditioning for film, because I hadn't really had experience auditioning for film. I had plenty of experience auditioning for theater and commercials. And so I just knew for me that I just needed that, you know, trial by fire, and that's how I was going to learn. Because we can talk to you about auditioning, and I can take you through mock auditions as much as I want, but until you're in that situation, you just don't quite develop the sensibility about how to cope with it. So yeah, get in class, audition for stuff, even if it's you taping yourself and it's, you know, it's, you have to send it, you know, WeTransfer or whatever, but just be doing it over and over. You know, the big recommendation I make for anybody I work with is read one script a week. This is at a minimum. Read one script a week and practice your cold reading at least 10 minutes a day. That's a very, very tiny ask. When I was a child, I studied classical music for several years, and when I was finally allowed to study with a particular piano teacher, I was 10 years old, And she gave me this notebook, and I had to practice 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week. I always had a piece I had to work on, a particular scale I had to work on, and chords that I had to work on. And I had to fill it out and say, it was the honor system, and I had to say whether I actually did the work or not. And if you didn't do the work, she would drop you. Okay, 10 years old. Okay, so when people come to me and say, I really want to do this, I really want to do this, or I'm stuck, or I'm not getting better, or I've reached a plateau, or nothing's really happening for me, I always say, well, what are your habits, right? Because this is the grunt work. This is the invisible work, like my friend Ben Warner and I talked about when we were in LA a few years ago. This is the work that has to be done that no one sees. We see the fruit of the work, which is you booked something. But you got to do the grunt work, right? Which is day in, day out, practicing until it becomes second nature. And I know for me, if I'm not in it, I get really, really rusty. Fortunately, because I'm coaching so much, I'm cold reading all the time with people because I have to, because I'm helping them prepare for auditions or, to do a taping or something. But yes, read at least one script a week, practice your cold reading at least 10 minutes a day, and get in a class or get in a group of friends, even if you do it over Zoom, or if you trust each other's pods, or if you can, go to a place where you can socially distance. But you got to be practicing this all the time. Otherwise, you'll just never develop a comfort level with it. I see it all the time. All right, fantastic questions, you guys. Let's see. Want to see if there are any more questions or comments, because I value your time and I won't keep you late just for the sake of hearing myself talk. There you go. That one's for you. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. All right, well, if there's nothing else, I won't take up any more of your time. As always, if you watch this later and you think of a question, you can always put it in the comments. You can text me, you can email me, you can message me. Let me know what you would like to know that I can support you with. I have a website, www.sarahgaston.com, where you can learn more about me and what I do. I offer classes and coaching. I also have a YouTube channel where I offer plenty of free tips on all things acting. And thank you, Carlos. And he's one of my students. You're wicked awesome, Carlos. So I have a YouTube channel with all sorts of videos on most topics you can think of. What are the stakes, what's the objective of the scene, how to cry on cue, etc. If there is something you would like me to talk about, either in a video or in this platform, please let me know. I'm open to suggestions. I'm here to serve you. Anyway, thank you so much. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear your mask, eat your greens, get enough sleep, etc. I love you guys. Bye.